Welcome everyone. Adam the Woo here. Today's adventure begins by looking at this placard here on the ground that states The Gamble House. I am in Pasadena, California. You might recognize this very impressive structure from Back to the Future. It was the fictional home of Doc Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, and the garage is right over there. Now I chose this spot to do the intro because I'm going to head over to the next town south of here, known as South Pasadena, which holds a special place in my heart because there are so many filming locations of the 80s persuasion. And I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 1974. So when this movie came out, Back to the Future, I would have been 11 years old in 1985 and rented a lot of VHS, a lot of video store rentals from the early 80s to the late 80s. That would be my favorite genre of film. Now I do kind of dip into the 70s and into the 90s, and then, you know, since then, a few here and there. But I am all about the 1980s, and South Pasadena is a plethora, a treasure trove of these spots. Some of them I have covered, some of them I have not, some in very great detail. Now, a little disclaimer, this will not be a deep dive into every single nook and cranny of some of these films that I'm going to be showing the spots from. But I thought, as of recording of this, it is a Sunday, let me check the date, Sunday, July 25th, 2021. Headed up from Orange County, there was very little traffic. Side note, a little insider tip, if you will. There's not a lot of traffic on Sunday mornings in Southern California. This is a good time to do this, and you should be able to cover all these spots within a couple of hours that I'm going to show. Starting now, it's almost 11 a.m. I'm gonna get going. Just heading a few miles into South Pasadena. I'm inviting you to join me. Shall you? And I also thought it'd be a neat idea, anyone that's visiting the greater Los Angeles area could just zip over to this section. Yeah, it looks very familiar on BTTF, doesn't it? And do this tour either on their own, in their own car, or just watch this video. And you can just see how close proximity a lot of these spots will be. This is the only spot that I will be showing that is not going to be in South Pasadena. They are all going to be in that same town. Let me get going. File this one under Casual Tour, presented by myself, Adam the Woo. I don't know if that's really I guess you could call it a casual tour. A non-specific, non-detailed explanation of how close proximity everything is. I feel like I have a pretty good handle on this area. Covered a lot of subject matters in great detail over the years. And know this vicinity, I'm gonna say like the back of my hand, but I know it pretty well. I'm also gonna give some timestamps. It's currently almost 11 a.m., 2 minutes to 11. Might as well start off with the obvious, right here next to the train tracks on Mission Street. I am passing by the original Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween house, the Myers house. The Metro Rail going by. This is a good starting point, in my opinion. The Myers house really needs no introduction. This will be the focal point. I'm just going to show some other stuff that's within a mile or two of this iconic structure. In fact, right behind this is a little Pretty in Pink spot, located near the corner of Hope Street and Meridian. I say near the corner because it's only half a block up, just past the alleyway. And this alleyway up here was also used in Halloween 2, the sequel. So if you pass by the Halloween 2 alley, you will see Andy's house, played by Molly Ringwald, and Pretty in Pink, Molly Ringwald, Pretty in Pink. Just be careful not to run into Michael Myers down there. You do not want to see him. Now, over the years, they have erected this fence here, but I do believe the interiors for Pretty in Pink were right inside there. Very close in proximity. Here it is. Molly Ringwald's homestead. With the Myers house in view. If you had a parking lot, or if you had a bicycle, you could ride around in what is now a parking lot and recreate Ducky's moments when he was looking at the house next to the train tracks. There's the house right over there. Again, nothing of which I'm showing is going to be groundbreaking or hasn't been shown before. But the proximity, everything in South Pasadena, is a pretty interesting subject matter. Including this building up here, which used to be a hotel, corner of Mission, was seen in a lot of productions. Waiting on the train. Which way is it going from? Here it is. If you've seen Step Brothers, there was a quick scene right in here where Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly were talking with that background behind it. Also, television show Step by Step, the intro, was right through here. The family drove pretty much following these same cars right past the South Pass Historical Museum. And the house is just a couple blocks from here, or a mile or so from here as well, from that show. Also on Mission Street, back in the day, you could have seen the Wolfmobile cruising right down this section with Styles behind the wheel. Michael J. Fox playing Teen Wolf up on top, doing some cartwheels. This rat's holding a sign says, "Get in here." That's pretty interesting. This whole stretch has been used in quite a few things. Hardware store. Mr. Howard's hardware store was right up here on the left. And right on the end, a scene from Mr. Deeds. Adam Sandler and Winona Ryder were right inside this pharmacy, which she's recognized from her youth by some of the town folk. Right on the corner of Mission and Fair Oaks, celebrating over 100 years at this location. Still looks the same, still a soda fountain as well. Because it is currently Sunday, they are closed. But check it out. Still has the bar there, the soda fountain bar and everything. Nice. Also should mention, just kind of covering things I know a lot about. There will be some subject matters and a lot of things that were filmed here that I'm not going to mention. I'm not going to give a broad spectrum, I'm just going to show what I'm very, very familiar with. A personalized tour. In La La Land, the Rialto was utilized. But not just that, that would probably be the most recent that I could pinpoint out. But dating back to Scream 2, the sequel, this entire building was utilized, the interiors and exteriors, for the premiere of Stab. Also used as the interiors inside here for Michael Jackson's Thriller. Exteriors were in downtown LA. But the interiors, you may have seen, you know, the photo or the meme of him chowing down on the popcorn, or if you've seen the music video. Right inside here. And he's watching the movie in the Rialto. And it's right here on Oxley Street, which there's a couple other spots on Oxley in close vicinity. I just love that old theater. I was lucky enough a couple Halloweens ago, on Halloween night, I went to South Pasadena, which was quite an experience, to say the least. And they were doing a little maintenance, a little construction in there, and one of the workers let me in and go and just get a little peek. I saw it with my own eyes. Could not figure out exactly what seat Michael was sitting in, but it was pretty cool to be in there from Scream 2 and from Thriller. And as I drive down Oxley, Laurie Strode's place. Just gotta find a place to park. And Rob Zombie also used this neighborhood for his Remake. That was pretty cool to swing by here and get the Jamie Lee Curtis angle. Also, on a side note, over here is a little placard that has to do with Halloween. Oh my gosh, look at these little doggies. The interiors of this building has been used many, many times for productions as well. Many, many times. Countless productions, including Rob Zombie's version. And just 2 short blocks away is the Strode house from the Remake. Oh wait, not the Strode house, the Myers house. Got confused for a minute. The Myers house from the Remake, which is used specifically for television and movie production. It is not a personal residence. Let me pull over here and park. But the thing I wanted to point out is another usage of this. My So-Called Life, the TV series, Claire Danes, Jared Leto. This was the family's home. Right here. So not just used for, you know, Rob Zombie's horror franchise, but also for My So-Called Life. And across the street, this house was also used for the neighbor. Soothing sounds of the train going by in the distance, all of it within kind of ear view of the metro rail. South Pasadena, gotta love it. I wonder if some of the neighbors, I'm sure the neighbors realize there's lots of filming. Some of the houses, and they may even be paid for some of the houses to be used in productions. This whole area constantly is being utilized for filming. But do you think those on this street have any idea that this is Jordan Catalano's stomping ground? Doubtful. Drove a little less than a mile, probably 1/8 of a mile, to the corner of Edgewood and Milan. The 1992 film, Beethoven, which spawned many, many sequels. The house from the first film was right over here. And it looks exactly the same as it did, including the pole here, the light pole, the sidewalk, the trees, the little awning, the windows, everything the same. Wow, pretty dang cool. There was even a moment that they show the houses across the way here when the mail lady is inserting the mail in the door slot. You can see that tree that is angled. Charles Grodin. I believe he recently passed. I remember him from one of the Muppet movies. What, Muppets Take Manhattan he was in? Classic. I stand corrected. Got to thinking about it, looked it up. It was the Great Muppet Caper. Just trying to go off most of this from memory and, you know, the general vicinity. But sometimes your brain says, I think you're incorrect. And I was. Had to look it up. Great Muppet Caper, not Muppets Take Manhattan, which is another classic. Moving on, just another block or two away. On the same road, on Milan, this home was used in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Now, most of it took place up in Chicago, where John Hughes was from. But there were 1 or 2 in the greater Los Angeles area, including the back of this home for the sunbathing scene when Ferris is running, trying to get back to his house, cuts through a backyard. It was this backyard in South Pasadena. Kind of jumps between the 2 girls, goes back and shakes one of their hands and introduces himself. Yep. Who knew? Corner of Mission and Fremont is this Caro's. Stood in for Big Buns and Terminator. That's right, Sarah Connor. I'm looking for Sarah Connor. I was told she was here. Can I see her, please? Another familiar street I'm approaching, recognizable from, you know, other productions. About to turn onto Highland, and not to point out the obvious, going to show another spot up here that a lot might not realize is on the same road. Featured in Jim Carrey's Liar Liar. There's the house, right there. Covered that in great detail before, but always like to point that out. Some might not realize that it's located next to some horror franchises. Next door neighbors. Maximilian! If you recall in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, when Paul Rubens playing Pee-wee, also a corner of Oxley and Milan, when he wrecks his bike, which I know a lot about that. Don't take it down any sweet slides, which he didn't, but he hit this curb, flipped over into the yard. I meant to do that. That was located next to his fictional home, right here on Oxley. Same corner. I know you are, but what am I? 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 Infinity. No, I'm not. You are. So dang cool. Now, if you ever make the trek, the pilgrimage to the Pee-wee house, don't stop here. After getting a photo, walk down 1 block that direction for a couple of other iconic spots. Yeah, everything's in the same general vicinity. In the same vicinity. Yep, 1 block. Corner of Oxley and Montrose. What is that sound? Oh, squirrel. Hello. Hello there. And as I've stated, very familiar landmarks through this town. Focus not on some of those that are very familiar and obvious, but upon the ones that might not be quite as obvious, like the Mama's family home from the TV sitcom right here. Classic television. I believe in that intro, the opening credit sequence with the theme song, she came out here, picked up the paper, and walked back in. Pretty much looks the same all these decades later. Also, pay no attention to whatever or whoever pops out from behind that hedge. That's none of our concern. Not too far away, have commuted to Fletcher Ave, probably about another half mile to a mile give or take. the sitcom Step by Step, starring Suzanne Summers, who was in one of my favorite sitcoms of all time, Three's Company, which was filmed, you know, around Santa Monica, and that, at least the exteriors were. But here in South Pasadena, she went on to do the show Step by Step, and they used this homestead. This facade was used as the intro, and for, you know, shots in between different scenes and whatnot. When it aired, I kind of considered it at that time a modern version of the Brady Bunch. Not precisely, but kind of similar with the melding of two families. Okay, got one more street to go to with a lot of places on that road. Heading over there now. Commuted just a block or two over to the corner of Huntington and Bushnell Avenue. Oh yes. While I am familiar with all the spots I've gone to, I am most familiar with this road. Been here many times. Iconic. If I were to wager, if I were a betting man, I would say every single house on this block has been used in something, whether it be a car commercial, any other sort of commercial, a TV ad, newspaper ad, photography, magazines, feature films, movies, television shows. There's just this one block of Bushnell, starting there on Huntington and going this way. The many times over the years, you know, 7 or 8 years that I've been occasionally stopping off here when I'm in this area, always seems to be something happening. One of the houses is kind of tapered off for filming, or there are signs saying no parking because they're doing some sort of drive, you know, angle or whatnot. Car commercials especially. Because I do not know the history of every single building and facade and home, I'm going to just pinpoint the ones out that I have locked up here in the top of my head that I know very well. Oh yeah, Bushnell. Really can see why it's chosen to be utilized and put on camera so much by location scouts. Should be an interesting job to be a location scout, to try to figure out where things are going to be filmed. Now in BTTF, Back to the Future, they covered up these palm trees, and they do that with a lot of films they're trying to put in the Midwest, or to keep it vague, they will put wrapping of foliage around the palm trees just to confuse the viewer. Now over here was Biff's grandma's house, part 2 of Back to the Future. Going to get my car, Grandma! And of course the tree up here George McFly climbed up into, which is located right there. And just across the way from Lorraine's house, which is the one on the far right, well, Biff threw the ball up top on that little balcony. But this was also used in Old School with Will Ferrell. They had the party in the backyard, and Will Ferrell did a little streaking right down through here, right underneath the George McFly tree. Now, fun fact, next to the Old School house was Lorraine's house in Back to the Future, but it was also used in Teen Wolf. And Michael J. Fox was filming Teen Wolf when Eric Stoltz played Marty McFly on this very road before Eric Stoltz was removed and Michael J. Fox took over. So Michael J. Fox did 2 movies in probably a year span here on Bushnell, Teen Wolf and Back to the Future. Pretty cool, right? Oh, that gentleman's riding in the same area that Doc Brown. Maybe he's going back there to the garage at Biff's grandma's house. I've never really had the gumption to climb up in this, but I know others that have. Go up onto the branch. Now this branch, some assume that it's this branch that George climbed up on there, Crispin Glover climbed up on. But I do believe it was this one. They make you think that he climbed up that branch there, but then when they are kind of filming it from low down here, it's this branch that he is on. Of course, laying down right there in the road was Michael J. Fox. Now, many years ago, there was an inscription over here. See if it's still here. Oh yeah, check it out. Still here. Barely can see it. Right there. Back to the Future. Filmed here, 1985. Very faintly. Ooh, this root right here looks like a crocodile head, doesn't it? Down the way just a bit was where George McFly's house was, fictionally. And the 30-something house, the television show 30-something, was directly across from George McFly's. Here it is. I only watched a few episodes of that show. For some reason it slipped past my radar. But I do know one of the guys in the show was also in Field of Dreams, and I love the movie Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner. And this is the house. And as far as proximity goes from the 30-something house, science fiction theater, George McFly. That laundry scene is in the back of this house as well. You're not going to be picking a fight, Dad. Dad, Dad, Dad. Daddy-o. And if you stop off here to see the BTTF spots, which a lot do, and you want to visit a very deep cut down here at the end of the block on Bushnell. 2 homes used in Ghost Dad. Not a lot have seen that one. It's kind of like Leonard Part 6. Another Cosby that not a lot have seen. But if you have seen Ghost Dad and you want to see both the homes as they were fictionally shown to be neighbors, they are neighbors in real life. Both of these houses showed up on film here at the end of Bushnell. Ghost Dad. Those houses might be haunted. A lot of history here in South Pasadena. All within a couple of miles, a series of blocks. And I can see why. The thing about South Pasadena, it sits in for a lot of different places around the country. You never really know. It doesn't really feel like Southern California here in South Pass. In a lot of ways, you think you're in the Midwest, which I think is why directors and producers and, you know, location scouts utilize this area, because it doesn't really have an LA vibe. Even though it's in the greater suburb Los Angeles area, you wouldn't look at this and think, oh, that's LA, unless you knew beforehand. Right? At least that's how I feel. Oh yeah, walking through some movie history. I don't know of any other road really that has this much of stuff that I am familiar with. Now, a lot of other roads will have 1 or 2 spots, but this has a numerous amount of houses. And it feels like I'm in the movies walking through here, which is pretty dang cool. And not you or anyone else on this planet is gonna make me change my mind. Just 2 houses down from Lorraine's. Which is weird. He was climbing up in the tree. I mean, they're neighbors. Probably sees her every day. He could just easily have a conversation with her. You know, there's his home, there's George's. And there's Lorraine's, also the Teen Wolf house. Yep, 2 movies that I really love on the same street within a year of each other, mid-80s. About 5 or 6 years ago I passed through here, and this home right here was for sale. I looked it up. Definitely out of my price range, and I would say that's probably not one of the nicer ones on this block. If you really want to really kick in the pants, look up some of the houses in South Pasadena. Whew. Yeah, Biff's grandma. She was wealthy. One other fun fact. They did film part 2 when Michael J. Fox is walking across there and he's looking at the binoculars at Biff's grandma's house. They didn't record it on that side of the road. They used the Universal backlot. So they didn't actually have him over there, which is strange. They might not have got permission from those neighbors. Fun fact. That's gonna do it for today. 2 hours. It took exactly 2 hours. I just looked at my phone. It is now precisely 1 p.m. Started at 11, ended at 1. 2 hours. Was not in a rush, very slow pace. Anyone could have their car, do what I just did. As the recording of this, it is a Sunday, so not a lot of traffic, but once you're kind of up here out of the greater LA area, so a suburb way away, traffic's not too bad in this area, no matter what day of the week it is. You could hit all the spots that I did in 2 hours. A lot of 80s, early 90s, some late 70s, mostly 80s spots, at least a dozen or more. Call this the 80s South Pasadena tour. There are a lot of other spots that I did not show, but I wanted to show the ones that I kind of know have a special place in my heart and I know really well just from years of visiting this area. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video. The vlog is over. For real though, isn't this a beautiful area?